Hey everyone! Sorry for the self-flagellation last time. I just needed to get the apologies out of my system over how much better I could have done at TFCon to go back to being sane. I'd just been kicking myself for a week because I felt like I didn't give any of you enough of my time, and I regretted not talking to you all more. I wish I'd met more of you there, and I wish I'd done more for you while we met. Next time I will be less of a failure, I'm sure of it. But let's finally cover something that I've been meaning to do for months now. One of the only designs I actually like from the Highmoon games. War for Cybertron Optimus Prime. Boy, how they massacred him in the second game, though. It's just like, no. Why? No. I'm not even passionate, just no. Anyways, I have both the Gamer Edition version here, as well as the original Deluxe from back when the game came out. And in terms of size, these two really aren't that dissimilar. At least in height. In width, yeah, the new Optimus is definitely showing off that Voyager scale. And that's kind of a problem, because this dude looks fucking stupid. Did Optimus have a small head in that game? Sure. Was it this tiny little baby bean significantly smaller than his hands? Well, it wasn't this bad at least. Dude is proportioned like an accident. Every time I look at this thing, I just go, man, that is unfortunate. I have seen plenty of figures with really bad kibble before, stuff that is choking the life out of them, but I rarely see something that looks this dumb and wrong. Looking at this, I can't conceive of the person who would say, yeah, that looks right to me. And the funny thing is, it's a working design. There's nothing really here where you go, boy, it would suck to be him. Outside of slightly bloated proportions, this looks fine. Well, when I say fine, I mean functional. Primus may have made him really ugly, but he didn't curse him with a body that would conjure thoughts of standing in front of a train to end your suffering like he often seemed to inflict on his other creations. It's a perfectly functional body that just happens to look like some kind of genetic mutation. Gotta hate the fist holsters on his hips. I do not understand why these exist. They do not look like they belong. They only serve to make him look like he had chunks of his legs scooped out to make way for his hands. And the kibble on his legs is really ugly. On the other hand, the original Optimus toy had the hip scoops, though they are smaller, and this thing is a kibble explosion. It is everywhere, on his shoulders, on his legs, on his love handles, on his ass. And yet I think it's all handled way better. As I've said before, sometimes the best way to deal with your kibble is to treat it exactly like kibble. So the leg panels sit utterly flush and don't have any visible waffling. The shoulders look like decorations, and from behind they're even more cohesive. Then you travel down a little and the ass is a splotch of color to liven up a little too much red. It's messier but more interesting, and it feels like less of a mistake. I will say that the one place I don't like this design is in the hips and thighs. That looks pretty primitive, and those stems are pencil thin. These are the legs of a librarian. If you minimize the backpack's effect on the silhouette, then Optimus has that hourglass figure with the milkshakes that brings all the boys to the yard. I'm sorry everyone, that came into my head, and now you must suffer too. But you know what? I like it a lot more like this than with the Gamer Edition figure. That thing looks like a bad Photoshop, like they wanted Optimus to have a less angular chest, so they just smashed that part down. This, with its actual dimension, doesn't make my eyes feel like they're glitching. Look, I don't know what to say. I just think this one looks way cooler despite the fact that it's clearly an older design with way more kibble on it. Yes, the new figure had like a decade of advancement to help hammer out some of the flaws, but it just wound up less appealing nonetheless. And in terms of hand feel, there is no contest. The old War for Cybertron Deluxe is vastly superior in this regard. His plastics feel harder, crisper, and sturdier. If metal were plastic, this is what that would feel like. On the other hand, the Gamer Edition figure feels like shit. The hip and thigh section is pretty good. Everything else feels soft and squishy. It flexes in your fingers. Joints have less hold, and they feel insubstantial in your hands. Also, yeah, his arm falling off constantly, endlessly, incessantly, relentlessly, perpetually, unfailingly, at every possible opportunity is not going to piss me off to the absolute limits of my sanity. Because of the stupid fucking gun arm gimmick, the damn thing comes off, and it's got about as much hold as an ant lying on its deathbed, riddled with cancer that the chemo stopped treating after years of a wasting disease. I have nothing but contempt for gun arms in the best of circumstances, and this is the worst of circumstances. Anyways, the heads are pretty good. I'm not a huge fan of the design for the Octanoggin on the Gamer Edition, but it's a well-executed version of it. If this is your favorite version of Optimus's face, or one that you happen to like a bit more than me, then this should be right up your alley. Personally, mine kind of sucks because they did a horrible job painting the head crest. Guys, how did you not notice you missed a lot of that? On the other hand, once again, the original figure is just kicking the bitch out of the Gamer Edition. I'm sorry if that's getting annoying, but that name deserves all of the disrespect in the universe. Anyways, this head kicks so much ass it hurts. I want this to be the head on the new Reactivate Optimus Prime. It's so violent and threatening. I swear they just upscaled this for Optimus Maximus and called it a day. This has so much mean energy, you could tell me that it's the Shattered Glass version, and I'd believe you. Guy has the vibe of the villain. Optimus Prime if he were a Death Knight, and it rules. As for accessories, I spent more time than I'd like to admit trying to find the shitty gun arm for the Gamer Edition, but came up wanting. Yeah, I flat out lost that. But screw it. It looks terrible, and I hate it. Why would I want the arm to end in a shitty, unfinished-looking gun? At least I'm still able to find the Wu-Tang axe. You look at this, and you tell me that's not what this is! Honestly, this thing is really pretty good, but I only like it when it's in the normal configuration. When it flips out to do the double broadhead thing, I think it looks terrible. Not only less like a real axe, but just dumb and bulbous. And it breaks down into segments with standard ports, so Optimus Prime lightsaber anyone? Interjection from the future! I completely forgot that he has a matrix. I appreciate the fact that it's different from the one they've been flogging since Earthrise, but at the same time, this one is kind of ugly, and it looks even dumber than the figure it comes with because it's so tiny, and only half-formed. Transmission from the future over! Meanwhile, the original figure comes with this pretty cool-looking World War II in space gun, with its side-mounted magazine that folds in half and is spring-loaded to auto-deploy. I mean, I don't know why you would fold it in half, it doesn't need to do that for storage, and it doesn't look like anything while folded, but it's really fun and addictive to do. So honestly, I'd say good accessories on both. The newer figure has at least a pretty cool axe, and the old figure has a really fun, cool-looking transforming gun that hasn't cheaped out anywhere. Now for posability, we do have one segment where the Gamer Edition figure actually dominates. A head with tons more range in all directions than normal. Shoulders pull slightly more than a 90, barely forwards butterflies, one elbow pulls about a 90, the other elbow pulls like a 110, but it's going to fall off because this arm sucks. Incomplete but pretty good wrist swiv, legs kick over his head, 90 out to the right, and no back, normal 90 knees that you can untransform for a bit more, and feet with tons of down and a solid rocker. The original figure also has a head with a lot more range than normal, shoulders also pull slightly more than a 90, though with more kibble interaction, normal 90 elbows, wrist swiv, and sword-wielding wrists, no waist, hips are pretty impeded forward as well as back and to the side unless you get the kibble out of the way, maximum knees, and feet with a swivel toe up, slight toe down, and a slight rocker. So actually, I was wrong. The Gamer Edition does not in fact dominate. I'm keeping that part in the script because it demonstrates that I truly believe that while writing this, but if you discount the lack of the waist and the limited forwards on the hips, then this has a slightly worse head, slightly worse shoulders, significantly better wrists, any backwards range on the legs at all, significantly better knees, and significantly better feet. The waist and forward on the hips are a real bummer, but I'd actually say that the older figure has better posing. As for transformation, this is one area where I can say that both are really good, though again the original figure is better. The Gamer Edition is doing some interesting and creative things, and the way that the feet snap into place on the tops of the shins makes my soul sing. I will flip those up and down just for fun on their own. But the rest of the process is really kneecapped by how thin and squishy the plastic is. It just flexes and bends, giving this thing an extreme case of the Play-Doh factor. So most of it is kind of unfun to handle. Meanwhile, the OG figure walks up and starts shredding a divine riff that is carried all the way up to heaven on angels' wings. There is one thing that holds this transformation back for me, and it's that it's just complex enough and unconventional enough that every time I do it, I forget like 2 steps. But otherwise, this is a genius and unique experience that will blow your socks off. And then we get to the end, and again, I think that the old toy is the winner. A lot of people like to make a big deal out of the fists on the back of the Gamer Edition. And yeah, I'll be one of them too. Fuck that noise. This is a Voyager. You couldn't have a panel flip out to hide that? The old figure is a deluxe with a more complicated transformation. Why doesn't that have anything sticking out when this does? But at the same time, I don't think that's the only problem. The front on the new figure just feels more chaotic. And boy, I find it hard to describe just how much I hate these slits on the top of the hood. There has got to be a better way to handle that doesn't involve Optimus's hood looking like a forklift had an accident on it during his manufacture. Meanwhile, the old Deluxe has less kibble, less waffling, fewer gaps, it's more cohesive, it's got a stronger aesthetic. Both of these look like if you took the Batmobile from the animated series, the Tumbler from the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, and fused those together with the American flag. So they both have these kick-ass pain train vibes, here to plow through anything standing between them and stomping some faces, but the Deluxe just has the better nasty wedge shape. And where the back end of the new figure just looks like an afterthought being structural and see-through, the original makes all that look like an engine the body of the truck couldn't contain because it's just too powerful, with a supercharger on top. So at the end, I have to ask the question. Is it just that the old figure rocks that hard, or is the new figure really disappointing? Because to be fair, I would call both of these good. The Gamer Edition figure is the worst looking of the two, and I would go so far as to qualify it as bad, even taking into account the fact that the art style just isn't for me, because it looks like a bastardization of the art style. But it's not heinous. This isn't one of the ugliest things I've ever seen, like the Kingdom Rhinox, it's just like a 4 out of 10. Quality is pretty good, but it's a little squishy, and the arm is obsessed with falling off. Accessories are about equal, maybe going in the new guy's favor. Posability is competitive, but the old figure dances harder. Both have good transformations, but the bad materials fairy strikes the Gamer Edition figure again, and there is some unpleasant clearance issues in the back, while the old figure is basically rocking every step loud enough to shatter mountains. And the alt mode on the new guy is just... it's bigger, but it's not as good. So is the old figure just that awesome? Yes. However, the new figure isn't as good as it should be. If I had to sum up my feelings on the Gamer Edition, it's a 6 out of 10. It's pretty okay. If the old figure didn't exist, I'd be like, yeah, this'll do you as a fan of the games just fine. But the old figure does exist. So why does this, when at no point is it doing anything better? You'll probably like this, but I think you'll probably like the old one more. And that's not half what I have to say, but it's enough of what I have to say. And I know, you know, what everyone else tells you to do at the end of these videos. So, if you liked what you saw here, please do that. And if you'd like to take it a step further, then please share this video with any friend you think may be interested. I hope you all enjoyed listening to me waste your time.